Everyone, welcome to the second episode of my Music by the Month production recap series. This one's going to be pretty similar to the first episode, where I'm just going to go through the song I released and just explain my insight and thought process when creating it. Every song I release, I'm going to be posting on YouTube alongside this series, so they can sort of be viewed like at the same time as they're released. So this is the second song of the year, and let's go to the FL Studio project. So for this next song, I tend to try to think of a narrative or a story I can tell with the music. And for this one, I had the idea of maybe a group of people around a campfire in the woods, and then maybe something happens and then it sort of develops from there. That's sort of how I built the bass around this. So when I think of sort of that environment and theme, I think of very sort of human sounding percussion, maybe people clapping their hands, snapping their fingers, just strumming a guitar, using that as a drum, something like that to sort of establish sort of the environment. And I sort of did that, so I sort of developed this groove just sort of based around those few ideas here. You can see some shakers, kick drum, and then some claps, which are also layered with some snaps as well. Just play at the start. So it's very simple, but I guess sort of if you were to be in that environment, there's only so much you can make, so that's sort of why I wasn't too worried about not making it super complicated at the start. Also, the next part I added to the groove was just this little bass line and some guitar rhythms. I just felt it worked quite well with the environment and also sort of added a little bit more bounce to the groove. So there you can see it's very simple. And yeah, about this time is when I sort of had an idea for maybe a theme which the narrative could sort of develop to, and I sort of had this idea that maybe one of the characters that was around the fire maybe left the group and then found some sort of alien, maybe UFO or maybe a creature or something like that, something interesting and mysterious that I could sort of put into the music and sort of add that little bit of interest. So that's where I'm planning to go with the song. So once I had the idea that I sort of wanted to have maybe this very spooky, mysterious alien theme, I was sort of thinking about what sort of instruments and sounds I could use to describe that to the listener. So I introduced this very ambient, spooky synth sound that sort of plays in the background as the groove sort of develops, and I'll play it. So it's a very eerie sort of sound that doesn't really change with the chords, so it almost feels like it's separated from the song a little bit, and it's quite a contrast to the rest of the timbres that have been introduced so far. And I forgot to include, when I played it, I also added in these piano chords as well that sort of add to the development of the song. Cool, so for this next part here, I felt the groove was pretty well developed, and I wanted to add in a new sort of point of interest in the song. And I came up with this quite odd sounding piano solo, and I put a bunch of effects on it to make it sound very sort of bouncy and quirky, which sort of creates the same sort of off-putting, airy vibe to the main groove, which is very sort of solid and very familiar sounding. So I'll just play a little bit of it here just to get the idea. Another thing I did with the solo in sort of the way I arranged it in relation to the rest of the groove is that I cut off this ambient synth in the background here for the first part to sort of give it space to for the listener to hear, and then once the solo sort of picked up a little bit in the second half, I brought back the ambience, and it works they sort of merge together quite well, and it sort of shows that the uneasy sort of separated feeling of the ambient synth sort of is connected to the odd sounding piano solo, which sort of separates it from the main groove, sort of creating sort of the mysterious feeling that I wanted to get. So after the solo, there's this sound that you can hear. I've panned it all the way to my right ear, and it's this very high-pitched bell sound. It's a little bit hard to hear just in this context, but what that sort of signifies in terms of the narrative is that I wanted that to be sort of the signal of the alien creature like acting or moving or doing something that will affect the main character that's run off from the rest of the group. And right after the bell sound can be heard, I added in the sound effect of a tree falling over, sort of showing that maybe they crashed down and they hit the tree, and then now it fell over, and then they can hear that. I also added in the same bell sound a bit later on, right before the final section, which is meant to be sort of like the final signal that this creature's sort of done their act and they're about to meet the main character who's sort of left the group. Yeah. The song ended up being a lot shorter than the other ones, so we're already at the final section. I wanted this to sort of act as a conclusion to the narrative, where the alien and the character sort of meet, or one encounters the other, and then something sort of happens. And I sort of wanted it to feel like that maybe the alien was sending some sort of radio signal, which is sort of interfering with the song, which is why I added in a lot of sort of static and just interference sounds and stuff like that. I used a lot of effects here to sort of create a very uneasy vibe, including very low sub bass, the tempo speeds up, sort of very off-key bells and sounds effects, as well as just the very sort of scratchy sounding static, which gets louder and louder. Yeah, so I'll just play it there. Just to break it down a little bit, it has sort of the main groove up here, but then it sort of has these bells here which sort of repeat over and over again, sort of creating like a loop, like an inescapable loop. So once you're here, you're sort of stuck here. That's sort of what the vibe I wanted to get, which is sort of a very uneasy, tense feeling. I also added in these sounds effects of just sort of these whistles and very odd foreign alien sounds. Once again, just adding to the whole theme. And then the static down here is just sort of white noise that I chopped it up to sort of create the rhythm. And then it sort of slowly dies down before coming back up at the end. Which brings to this final part here, where everything cuts out and it's just the bells, and then the bells get cut out by the static, and then the signal that the aliens were trying to send through comes through in this very quick Morse code, which I will not say what it is. But yeah, that's sort of how I wanted to end, very sort of open end to the narrative, but I guess it sort of concludes the song musically. So that's most of the song there. I just wanted to go back and just acknowledge a couple of things in the arrangement, which I didn't at the start. I added in the melody at the very end, just here, to sort of lead into, just help to sort of transition the intro a little bit better, and also to sort of foreshadow the ending a little bit, just to sort of connect it, the whole piece as a whole, as well as adding in some of the interference sounds throughout the solo here. Just those very characteristic sounds which sort of inform the listener of the environment a little bit better throughout the song, so it's not super confusing. This was a lot shorter, and it was I just wanted to do something a little bit more experimental with this. So that's the main song there. It's available to listen to on the channel now, so please do. And in 1 month I'll be back with another episode and a song release. So until then, I will probably not post anything on this channel.